Quad 66. All right, I've got some preliminary testing done. These are the NewBeeDrone Nitro Nectar. They've now released these batteries in the 2S version. And if you aren't familiar with these batteries, these are the go-to Whoop batteries. So these Nitro Nectars, they're touted as having this different construction. So the profile of these is very, very square, and if you pull them apart like NewBeeDrone did and other people have pulled apart some other ones, inside the battery, instead of having a rolled configuration, it's got these like sheets of laminate, and it's clearly it's built different. And so if you compare these to like the other GNB, Whoop style batteries, these handily outperform them. But my question was, is that because these are actually superior? Or is it because we just don't get the good stuff from GNB in that Whoop shape? So on my 2S quads, my outdoor quads, I always fly these packs here rather than the Whoop shape, the long stick packs. And that's for two reasons. One is because I like the weight distribution of this better. It's not as long, so you don't have as much on the roll axis. The other thing is that this has that same high C rating as like the bigger 450 and 520 packs. You can see that GNB rates this as 80C/160. And although that's sort of like kind of BS in a way, it is fairly internally consistent for a GNB that if they rate a cell with a higher C rating, it's generally better than a lower C rating, with some exceptions. But anyways, the reason I thought that this was interesting is because now I can compare NewBeeDrone's good stuff to GNB's good stuff, and I thought that would make for an interesting comparison, and then let us know whether these Whoop batteries are actually kind of worth it, or, I mean, they are because there isn't something that's better, or is it kind of a little bit of hype and we're just not getting the good stuff from GNB in this format? There's a couple other manufacturers. Tattoo makes a battery that seems structurally identical, and people really like the way that works. And then also WeBleed FPV also has a version that seems to be manufactured by the same company using the same technology, or something that looks identical for all practical purposes. Big downside of NewBeeDrone is these batteries are expensive. On their site, when they list this battery, the picture shows 2 and the price was like $13. And so I looked at that and I thought I was buying 2 of these, because these are like, each one of these is like $5 and this is 12. And so I thought, well, okay, if you're showing 2 in the picture and the price is like twice, you're getting 2. And I was wrong. I intended to buy 2 because I always get a little concerned about kind of N1 testing because, the variability. But at $13, I'm not sure if I'm going to go and jump and buy another pack just to test it. I might buy it for performance reasons, but not just to test it at $13 a pop for one battery. That's a little over the top. So, what's interesting about these is, so these come with a GNB 27. I pulled it out because I wanted to be able to do a comparison with what I'm used to. I've got all my quads, all my outdoor stuff on XT30, which I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But they're all on XT30, and so I pulled GNB 27 off of this. One of the first things that jumped out at me is, look how thin these wires are. Just from durability perspective, I'm a little bit concerned about these wires just from the durability perspective alone. Then I thought, okay, well, durability aside, look how thin that wire is. How can we possibly deliver the current that we need through such a thin wire? Look at this. So these on GNB, it's kind of interesting that when you have an XT30, GNB puts a thicker wire on it than they do if you do a GNB 27. So this battery, I also bought a GNB 27 version because that's what it was available from NewBeeDrone. The XT30 version was sold out, but it was kind of interesting when it came back that you can see the difference in the wire. So, and I have bought these, actually I have one, yeah. So let's put these wires up so you can see it's not just the 380 cell. But you can see when you buy the XT30, you get a longer wire and it's a thicker gauge. Like this is a pretty hefty gauge of wire compared to that. To me, this looks kind of borderline, kind of thin on the wire. And then the NewBeeDrone is just even thinner. Like, when was the last time we've seen leads that thin on batteries, geez. Anyways, the interesting thing about that is when we go to performance. Oh, the quad that I'm flying these on, it's this guy. So I took a little break from this quad and then started flying it again, and I just love this quad. So this is a 2S 1103 with these LDRC motors. The props are always still leave something to be desired. These HQT65s, the balance, they're just not as balanced as they should be. And I'm flying this on a Warpig frame, so 115 millimeter cut in 3 millimeter thickness. So performance-wise, I've just started. So I've run, so both I intentionally bought new GNBs also because I wanted to compare new to new and not new to old. But both of these I now have 3 flights on them, and the between battery comparisons have been pretty consistent. I'm going to keep flying them, and I'm going to fly them the same number of times to keep them, so that I'm not beating up one cell more than the other. But I'm going to come back to this and do some kind of down the road comparison, because there's oftentimes a big difference between batteries new versus old in terms of how they hold up, and so we'll see if the difference holds up more long term. In terms of what I found, so this is not like the super scientific, crazy accurate testing. This is me just trying to do a pretty good job of trying to fly both of these batteries. And basically what I do is I try and fly them pretty similar, and the video is going to be at the end of this. I'm going to put in the flight video. I'm not going to put any music or anything fancy in there. It's just, but that way you can go and look at the flights and see if you think that they're significantly different in terms of how much I'm punching out and flying and things like that. The flying is not exciting, it's not inspired. I'm just basically trying to minimize any crashes. I did have one quick crash in the NewBeeDrone in this particular flight, but these sort of numbers have been playing out over the flights. So basically what I've been seeing with the NewBeeDrone is I've been getting close to a minute more flight time versus the GNB. I've been kind of hitting similar low battery. In this case on the GNB I hit a little bit lower, 6.53. And then when I'm landing them, in general, the NewBeeDrone seems like I'm sagging less. You can see I'm ending here at 6.99 on the NewBeeDrone versus over here I'm 6.92 for the GNB. And then I let them recover. So after I recover for a little bit, you can see the NewBeeDrone bumps up a little bit, but not as much as the GNB. So the NewBeeDrone bumps up to 7.1, which is still fine. I didn't fly this too deep, but it didn't bump up quite as much as the GNB, and I don't know if this board has an actual current sensor or this is just the estimated use. You can see 212 versus 192. I'm not sure if that's like a real number or just an estimate. But this sort of ratio has been holding up to where once I get to the voltage that I want to land at, I seem to be easily getting at least 30, maybe 45, 50 seconds more on this new NewBeeDrone battery versus the GNB. So in air, my sense is with the NewBeeDrone battery, the quad feels a little lighter, floatier. Like it's just got, it does feel like it has a little bit more power. It feels like my idle or my hover is a little lower on the GNB, and that kind of fits with the possibility that the NewBeeDrone is delivering either higher voltage or less kind of like it's giving you the amps a little bit easier. It's not sagging as bad. That's my impression in the air. However, this is not my best example. Even though this is the newest one, this is not my best example of these cells. I've found some variability, and I'm not sure if it's actually this one that's better or not, but I found some variability where some of these cells perform really well and some perform like okay. And for example, after I flew those two, I flew another GNB, and so this is an older cell. This is not a brand new cell, so this one has a lot of flights on it. And you can see here I got, even though it's an old cell, I got 4 minutes 40 seconds and finished up with it recovered out to 7.2 volts on the 2S. Now, I don't have the other numbers in there because I didn't record that one, unfortunately. I didn't do a screen grab, so I don't know what the rest of the numbers were. But that was kind of interesting to me that some of my older cells are actually outperforming this newest cell that I got. So what does this mean? Probably not a huge amount, But getting one of each, and I have another one of these, I just didn't bother changing out the GNB 27. I should have, but I didn't. But if you're just rolling the dice, you might actually get a little bit more performance out of the GNB versus, or out of the NewBeeDrone versus the GNB. Or if you get a good one like this one, I think you probably don't. I think once we fly this cell, this pack down to as many cycles as we have on this one, I think they'll probably be pretty equivalent and not much different. What's actually probably most interesting about that is the wire difference. I'm surprised this pack is delivering what it's delivering through this Weasley little wire. And it sort of like brings up the question of, should we be flying these XT30s? And I think the answer is realistically no, because I'll put the link down below, but Mute FPV has done some great testing comparing the different connectors, XT30s and GNB 27s. Basically, what Mute FPV found is over a range of different current draws that basically the difference that you get in voltage drop with an XT30 versus the GNB 27, it's pretty negligible. It's only like 0.2 to 0.3%. Like if you look at the voltage of the XT30 versus GNB 27, the GNB 27, it's only like 0.2 to 0.3% lower on voltage, which is not a lot. It's really just, it's not. The XT30, though, on the other hand, weighs a full gram more. So if you take a pair of the XT30, it's like 1.8 grams. And then if you take a pair of the GNB 27, it's only 0.8 grams. So you can save a full gram in the connector alone. On top of that, the wire, if you're buying, especially the newest GNB batteries, if you're on the XT30s, they put a ton of wire on here, and that weighs, that's not free. You gotta tow this around in the air. And so if you look at it from the connector alone of XT30 versus GNB 27, you're towing around an extra gram. And so on this build, which is all up weight 60 grams, your weight with the XT30 is 1.7% heavier. So you're adding 1.7% extra weight to reduce voltage drop by 0.2 to 0.3%. So math-wise, it doesn't make sense. And this battery kind of reinforces the idea that maybe the GNB 27 is plenty, because these wires are so thin and this battery just does fine. Maybe that means that the battery is just that good that it can overcome these super thin wires. That's possibly true, but I think the real answer is that we've probably jumped the shark with XT30 and these crazy thick wires. Look how much wire that is. Now, in terms of weight, these actually, what's nice about this comparison is these weigh up exactly the same after I converted them out to the XT30. So here's the GNB, 18.33. Let's throw the NewBeeDrone on there. 18.44. So a tenth, just a tenth difference in the weight. Now look at this though. So look at the wire weight difference. So here I'm going to put on, so that was 18.33, right? Now just the wire difference that GNB does, look at that, 20.5. What was this? 18.33 versus 20.5. So we're talking about 2.2 grams difference just in that wire. And this isn't even the worst of them. I think this one is. Maybe 22. So about the same as the other one. But anyways, I think that's something to consider, that if this pack can deliver that much current through these Weasley little wires, then I think this is just overkill, and I think you're towing around a couple extra grams that you don't, like 2 grams more than you probably need to. Well, actually like 3 grams, right? Because if you go with the with the GNB 27, let's do this right. Let's see. So I said this was 18.3. So we're saying to go from the wire difference in the GNB. Now, obviously, you could shorten these wires and cut them down, but if you already have the XT30, are you really going to go through that effort to shorten the wires? Probably not. You're probably like me and you're not going to. But if you go with the GNB 27 connector battery, the wires alone, you're going to save 2 grams, plus you're going to save another gram on the connector. So you're talking about a 3 gram difference. And so I'm pretty skeptical that this extra thickness in wire plus the XT30 versus GNB 27 and the thinner wire is really going to make up a 3% difference when we're seeing that, you know, from mute FPV, that the connector is only a 0.2 to 0.3% difference. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? I think we can also probably calculate stuff out too. There's calculators that if you put in the gauge of the wire, the length of the wire, the current draw, you can calculate out the voltage drop. So maybe there's another way to go about figuring that out. But anyways, I thought that was super interesting. Anyways, so next up, what I'm going to do is just keep beating up these cells. I'm going to fly them a lot, and then we're going to see how they hold up over time, and kind of like run the numbers again and see if they shifted or changed, and do a follow-up video. But in the meantime, I don't know, is this cell really twice, is the NewBeeDrone pack really twice as good as the GNB? I don't know. I do know, I've had a few of these. These are a disappointment. I'm not sure what they did here, but on these 380s, these are rated higher. These are rated as 90 and 180C, which is obviously higher than the 80 and 160. But I've got a couple of these, and these just, they're below par. If I take all my 2S cells, these are lower than middle of the pack, which has been kind of interesting, that these yellow labels, which should be better. For me, the batch I got, these haven't been performing. So for right now, I'm sticking with the pink label, but I don't know, this is interesting. So expensive though, my goodness. 13 bucks for that. That's a lot of money. All right, till next time, cheers.